The streetlights bled sickly yellow onto the cracked pavement, each one a tiny, mocking sun. Another double shift, another walk home, the city's exhaust fumes clinging to my clothes like a second skin. My name is Wendy, and I'm 29 years old, though some days I feel like I've lived two lifetimes already. One where I was a person, and another where I was just a ghost, haunting the edges of my family's perfect picture. Before I go on, comment below where in the world you're watching this from. Home was a converted garage behind a duplex I didn't own, rented from a landlord who probably forgot I existed half the time. It was small, smelled faintly of old oil and desperation, but it was mine. No shared walls with a family who saw right through me. I kicked off my worn sneakers by the door, the cheap rubber squeaking against the concrete floor. My phone buzzed in my hand, a familiar vibration. The family group chat. I almost didn't open it, but the morbid curiosity, that little itch of self flagellation, always won out. It was a flurry of photos. Harmony, my younger sister, smiling brightly in pristine scrubs, a stethoscope draped artfully around her neck. Harmony's last clinical rotation, Mom had captioned it, followed by a string of heart emojis. So proud of our future doctor, Dad had added, a rare burst of enthusiasm from him. There were comments from aunts and uncles, all gushing about Harmony, about her brilliance, her dedication, her destiny. I scrolled past them, my thumbs numb, not a single mention of me. Not a, how's Wendy doing? Not a, did Wendy get home safe from her shift? Just Harmony. Always Harmony. She was 26 now, 3 years my junior, and the undisputed golden child. It wasn't a new feeling, this invisibility. It had started years ago, a slow, insidious fade. I remembered the day clearly. I was 18, fresh out of high school, clutching a brochure for the state university. Harmony, then 15, was in her room, the door shut, the muffled sounds of a therapist's voice seeping through. She'd been struggling with anxiety, Mom said, needed intensive support. Wendy? Mom, Linda, had said, her voice tight, avoiding my eyes. She was 53 then, already looking perpetually stressed. Your father and I, we just can't swing it. Not right now. Harmony's therapy bills, her special tutors. It's a lot. We can't waste more money on something that might not even pan out. Waste more money? I'd echoed, my voice barely a whisper. I'd worked my ass off in high school, straight A's, scholarships lined up. Dad, Felix, then 56, sat silently, flipping through a newspaper, his usual passive support of whatever Linda decreed. He looked up briefly, a flicker of guilt in his eyes, before retreating behind the newsprint. You're so resourceful, Wendy, Mom had continued, already moving on. You'll figure it out. Get a job. Save up. Harmony? She needs us. She's delicate. You're strong. Strong. That was the word they used to justify every burden they piled on me, every sacrifice they demanded. Strong enough to work two jobs right out of high school, strong enough to put off my own dreams indefinitely, strong enough to watch Harmony glide through life, every door opened for her, every whim indulged. I'd figured it out, all right. I'd gotten a job, then another, then a third. I'd saved, I'd learned, I'd built, all while they were busy polishing their golden girl. Now, years later, the bitterness wasn't a raging fire anymore. It was a cold, steady hum beneath my skin, like a low grade fever. It was in the weary sarcasm that coated my thoughts, in the tight smile I offered when my mother inevitably called to ask if I could pick up Harmony's dry cleaning. I tossed my phone onto my makeshift bed, a futon I'd bought used. My eyes landed on the small, unassuming painting hanging on the wall, a cheap landscape bought for $5 at a flea market. Most people would see a dusty piece of art. I saw a door. I reached behind the canvas, my fingers finding the familiar latch. The painting swung open, revealing a shallow recess in the wall. Inside, nestled amongst some old tools and a few emergency bills, was a small, heavy duty safe. Not a fancy one, just a basic, fireproof box. I spun the dial, the clicks echoing in the quiet garage. The latch sprang open with a soft thud. Inside, on top of a stack of investment statements and legal documents, lay a single, crisp, white envelope. I pulled it out, my fingers tracing the embossed seal. The contents were familiar, yet still held a potent and almost electric charge. I slid out the thick paper, unfolded it carefully. It was the deed. The official, notarized deed to a luxury condo downtown, a place with floor to ceiling windows, a concierge, and a view of the city skyline that would make anyone gasp. And there, printed clearly as the owner, was the name Harmony Nelson. My lips curved into a slow, tired smile. Harmony Nelson, the future doctor, the golden child, the one who never had to lift a finger. She thought that apartment, that symbol of her parents' boundless generosity, was hers. She thought they'd gifted it to her, a reward for her tireless pursuit of medical excellence. But I knew the truth. Every single penny, every single mortgage payment, every single tax bill that kept that deed in Harmony's name had come from me. From the double shifts, the late nights, the scraped knees and burning eyes. From the very labor my family dismissed as just Wendy. I folded the deed back into the envelope, the paper rustling softly. It was Harmony's name on it, yes. But it was my property, my revenge. And soon everyone would know. The deed, tucked back into its safe, felt like a secret heartbeat in the wall. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a ledger, meticulously recording every slight, every dismissal, every single hour I'd spent building a life my family swore I couldn't have. They called me strong, a convenient label that meant we don't have to worry about her. And for years, I let them believe it. The first few years after high school were a blur of fluorescent lights and aching muscles. I was 18, then 19, then 20, watching my peers head off to dorms and frat parties while I scrubbed dried coffee rings off countertops. I worked at a diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then cleaned offices until 10 p.m. Weekends were for retail, folding clothes until my fingers cramped. My hands were always chapped, my hair perpetually smelling of stale grease and disinfectant. It was during one of those late night cleaning shifts, wiping down a deserted real estate office, that I saw a familiar face. Presley Willis. He was a year older than me, had been a quiet kid in high school, always sketching in the back of class. Now he was wearing a sharp suit, looking impossibly put together even at midnight. He'd stayed late, hunched over a desk, a laptop glowing in front of him. Wendy? He'd said, looking up surprised. What are you doing here? I'd mumbled something about a side gig. He just nodded, then offered me a coffee from the machine. We talked for an hour, the hum of the office building around us. He'd gone to a community college, then gotten into real estate development. He wasn't flashy, but he was smart, and he saw things differently. You know, Wendy, he'd said, swirling his lukewarm coffee, you're working harder than most people with 2 degrees. You should be working for yourself. He told me about tax auctions, about distressed properties, about how to leverage small savings into something bigger. He didn't offer to do it for me, but he laid out a map. He became my quiet mentor, a sounding board for my insane ideas, always pushing me to learn, to analyze, to take the calculated risk. He was 30 now, a successful developer, and still, he never asked for anything in return. He just seemed to genuinely believe in me. So, I started small. A tiny, run-down house bought at auction, fixed up with my own hands on weekends, then rented out, then another, and another. By day, I was still the just okay Wendy, the one who worked a bunch of odd jobs. By night, I was running spreadsheets, analyzing markets, and learning every legal loophole I could find. My parents, Linda now 64 and Felix 67, never asked for details. They just nodded, vaguely pleased that I was independent. It meant they didn't have to think about me. The illusion was easy to maintain. I kept my garage apartment, drove my beat up car, and always made sure to look just tired enough to seem like I was still struggling, but not so much that they'd feel guilty. Harmony, meanwhile, was sailing through med school, her life a curated Instagram feed of study groups, exotic vacations, and increasingly expensive gifts from our parents. She was 26 now, 3 years my junior, still the center of their universe. Then came the call. My mother, Linda, her voice practically vibrating with excitement. Wendy, darling, Harmony's graduation gala. Can you believe it? My little girl, a doctor. I mumbled congratulations. I'd known it was coming. This was the culmination of years of parental investment, both financial and emotional. Of course you'll be there, Mom continued, not really asking. We need all hands on deck. Harmony wants it to be perfect. You can help with the setup, maybe help pour drinks. You're so good with people. Pour drinks. My lips twitched. The woman who owned half a dozen properties, who was paying the mortgage on her golden daughter's luxury condo, was being asked to pour drinks at the celebration of her sister's success. It was almost poetic. Sure, Mom, I said, my voice sweet, just the right amount of weary enthusiasm. Whatever Harmony needs. A week later, I found myself sitting at the polished dining table in my parents' house, the same table where I'd been told I was too expensive to educate. Harmony, radiant and oblivious, was going over seating charts with Mom, discussing floral arrangements and catering options. Dad sat quietly, occasionally nodding when prompted. We're thinking a string quartet for the cocktail hour, Harmony announced, tapping a manicured finger on a diagram. It just screams sophistication, don't you think? Absolutely, sweetie, Mom cooed. Only the best for our doctor. She turned to me, a bright, brittle smile on her face. You know, Wendy, looking at Harmony, it just makes you so proud. All her hard work, all her dedication. She's really made something of herself. I took a slow sip of water. She certainly has. Mom chuckled, a light, dismissive sound. Maybe someday you'll surprise us too, Wendy. You know, really make something of yourself. I met her gaze, held it for a beat too long. Then I smiled. A wide, genuine smile that didn't reach my eyes. Maybe, Mom, I said. Maybe I will. The smile I'd given Mom at the dinner table felt like a physical shield, deflecting her casual dismissal. It was a practice smile, honed over years of being the strong one, the independent one, but beneath it, a final cold calculation was forming. I needed to know definitively if there was any flicker of concern for me, any residual sense of parental obligation left in them. The next morning, I sent a text to the family group chat. Hey everyone, quick question. My car's making a weird noise. Think it's the alternator. Mechanic quoted me $200 for the part. Anyone able to spot me for it? I can pay you back next month. I knew the answer before I even sent it. My beat up sedan was a constant reminder of my struggle, a convenient prop in the narrative they'd built around me. The replies came swiftly. Dad, Felix, now 67, messaged first, within 5 minutes. Oh, that's a shame, Wendy. Car troubles are the worst. Hope you get it sorted. No offer of help, just platitudes. Mom, Linda, 64, chimed in moments later. Oh, honey, you're so resourceful. You always figure these things out. Remember when you fixed that leaky faucet in your garage apartment? You're the independent one. We just paid off Harmony's last semester, you know? Tuition is astronomical these days. Astronomical. I stared at the screen, a dry laugh escaping my lips. Harmony's last semester, the one that cost more than my entire year's income from my first two jobs, the one that was paid for by them while I was out there buying distressed properties and building a portfolio they knew nothing about. My test was complete. The answer was a resounding, familiar no. They wouldn't even part with $200 for my car, not when their golden goose needed polishing. I sighed, setting my phone down. The alternator wasn't actually broken. It was just a test, and they'd failed, predictably. Later that day, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unfamiliar number. Hey, this is Christian. I just got a text about an eviction meeting for my place on Elm Street. Is this a mistake? I paid rent on the first. I frowned. Elm Street. That was one of my properties, a multi unit condo building I'd bought 2 years ago. I managed the leases through a property management company, but I kept my own records. I checked my notes. Christian Horton, Unit 3B, rent paid on time, no eviction notice sent. This is Wendy, I texted back. I'm the owner of the Elm Street property. There's no eviction meeting scheduled for you. Your rent is paid? Are you sure you got that text from the right number? A moment later, my phone rang. It was the same unfamiliar number. I answered. Wendy? A male voice asked, a hint of confusion and surprise in his tone. Christian Horton. Wait, you're the owner? My management company gave me this number for property owner inquiries. I thought it was some corporate office. He sounded about my age, maybe a bit older. 31, the outline said. It's me, I confirmed, a slight amusement in my voice. And no, you're not getting evicted. Looks like a wrong number sent you that text. Probably a typo from the management company. Sorry about that. No, no, it's fine, he said, and I could hear the gears turning in his head. It's just, wow. I mean, I figured the owner was some old dude in a suit. You're not what I expected. Is that a compliment or a complaint? I asked, leaning back against the garage wall. He chuckled. Definitely a compliment. Look, I'm actually at the building right now. Just came to check my mail. Could I could I buy you a coffee? Just to apologize for the mistaken panic? I hesitated. My usual routine involved avoiding any unnecessary social interaction. But Christian's voice was genuinely curious, not pushy, and a coffee wasn't a huge commitment. Sure, I said. Give me 20 minutes. I'll meet you at the coffee shop on the corner. When I arrived, he was already there, nursing a black coffee. He was tall, with kind eyes and a slightly rumpled charm that suggested he didn't spend too much time worrying about appearances. He'd failed out of med school, the outline mentioned. That explained the slightly lost yet intelligent air about him. So, he said after we'd settled, you own the whole building. Parts of it, I corrected, not wanting to give away too much. I started small, built up over time. He nodded, impressed. That's really something. Most people my age are still trying to figure out how to pay off student loans. I know I am. He gave a wry smile. Used to be on a different path myself. Med school. Didn't quite work out. We talked for a while longer about the city, about the absurdities of life. He didn't pry, just listened and offered his own surprisingly insightful observations. It was a strange friendship, born from a mistaken text and a shared coffee, but it felt easy. As I walked back to my garage apartment later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number, but the text had a familiar attachment, a PDF of a drink menu for Harmony's gala. Hey Wendy, the text read. It's Julia Mann, Harmony's med school friend. I designed the drink menu for the gala, but I swear that girl is driving me insane. She treats the event staff like dirt. Just thought you might find this interesting. Maybe I'll see you there. Good luck, Julia Mann. Harmony's best friend. 23 years old, according to the outline, and apparently she hated Harmony enough to slip me a copy of the gala's drink menu, a small, passive, aggressive act of rebellion. This was unexpected. A crack in Harmony's perfect facade, delivered by someone on the inside. My smile widened. The game was truly afoot. The gala was set for a Saturday night. I arrived hours early, just as Mom had suggested, dressed in the black uniform of the event staff. A crisp white shirt, black pants, and sensible shoes. My hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. I looked exactly like what they expected, a hired hand. The ballroom was already buzzing with activity. Caterers were arranging platters, florists were putting the finishing touches on elaborate centerpieces, and a sound crew was testing microphones. Harmony, 26 and looking perfectly poised even in a casual dress, was already there, directing everyone with the air of a benevolent dictator. She barely glanced my way as I walked past, carrying a stack of linen napkins. Oh, Wendy, good, you're here. Mom, Linda, now 64, said, bustling over. She was already dressed in a shimmering gown, her face alight with a manic energy. Can you help set up the champagne flutes? Harmony wants them arranged in a pyramid. I nodded, already moving towards the bar area. Sure, Mom. The hours crawled by. I arranged flutes, polished silverware, and helped carry trays. Harmony floated around, occasionally stopping to complain about a misplaced napkin or a slightly crooked flower. Her voice, usually sweet, took on a sharp edge when addressing the staff. Julia Mann's text about Harmony treating staff badly echoed in my mind. It seemed Julia hadn't been exaggerating. Around lunchtime, the family gathered in a private dining room adjacent to the main ballroom. Just Mom, Dad, Harmony, and me. Dad, Felix, 67, looked uncomfortable, picking at his salad. Mom, however, was beaming. Harmony, darling, she began, her voice dripping with adoration. Your father and I have something for you. Harmony's eyes lit up. She was like a magpie, drawn to anything shiny. Mom pulled out a small velvet covered box from her purse. It looked old, worn at the edges. This, Mom said, opening the box to reveal a delicate antique silver bracelet intricately carved with tiny floral patterns, was your great grandmother's. It's been passed down through generations of women in our family. We wanted you to have it today as you embark on your incredible journey. It symbolizes the legacy you're building, the strength and wisdom you carry. Harmony gasped, her fingers trembling as she took the bracelet. Mom, Dad, it's beautiful. Thank you, thank you. She immediately fastened it around her wrist, admiring it. I watched, my expression neutral. No one looked at me. No one offered me a legacy bracelet. My legacy was the calloused hands and the silent spreadsheets. My strength was the kind that got you left behind. I picked up a champagne cork that had popped earlier during a test pour, turning it over in my fingers. It was nothing, just compressed wood, but I pocketed it anyway. A small, meaningless trophy. As the afternoon wore on, guests began to arrive for the pre gala reception. I was stationed near the bar, pouring champagne, my face a polite, professional mask. The air filled with the murmur of polite conversation, the clinking of glasses. Wendy? A voice said, low and surprised. I turned. Christian Horton, 31. He was wearing a crisp white shirt and black vest, a bar towel slung over his arm. Christian? I said, genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? He gave a wry smile. Extra money. I bartend sometimes. Didn't realize you'd be working the event. He gestured vaguely at my uniform. Or working this event specifically. Small world, I said, trying to keep my voice even. My cover, the just okay Wendy, was starting to crack. People were noticing me. Yeah, he said, his eyes lingering on me for a moment. Small world, and you're in a lot of unexpected places. He didn't sound judgmental, just curious. He moved to the other end of the bar, starting to mix drinks, occasionally glancing my way. A few minutes later, Julia Mann, 23, breezed past, looking harried. She caught my eye, gave a quick conspiratorial wink, and then disappeared into the crowd. She was still on my side, it seemed. The reception was in full swing. Harmony was holding court, surrounded by adoring relatives and proud professors. My parents beamed, their faces flushed with pride. I kept pouring, kept smiling, kept blending in. When there was a lull, I slipped away to the staff restroom, needing a moment to myself. The small, sterile room offered a brief respite from the glittering chaos outside. I locked the door, leaned against the cool tiles, and pulled something from the inner pocket of my black pants. It was a small, velvet box. Not antique, not passed down through generations, just a simple, modern box, the kind you'd get from a high end jeweler. I flipped open the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of white satin, was not a bracelet, not a necklace. It was a single, folded piece of paper. I unfolded it carefully, my thumb tracing the elegant script. It was the property deed, the one for the luxury condo. Harmony Nelson's name was scrawled across the top in bold, gold lettering like a proclamation. But below it, in smaller, almost invisible print, were the initials W.N. Wendy Nelson. the true owner, the one who had paid for it all. I closed the box, the soft click echoing in the small room. The time for quiet resentment was over. The ceremony itself was a blur of academic robes and proud parents. I stood at the back of the auditorium, blending into the crowd of other event staff. Harmony, 26, was one of the student speakers. Her voice, amplified by the microphone, was clear and confident, every word perfectly enunciated. To my incredible parents, Linda and Felix Nelson, she began, her gaze sweeping over the audience, landing on my mother, Linda, 64, who dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Your unwavering support, your endless sacrifices, your belief in me even when I doubted myself, it has been the bedrock of my success. This degree is as much yours as it is mine. She went on, a rehearsed monologue about dedication, the future of medicine, and the privilege of service. It was polished, robotic, dripping in the kind of parental sound bites Mom had probably coached her on for weeks. There was no genuine emotion, just a performance for the audience, for the cameras, for the image. It was exactly what I expected. During a break between speeches, I slipped out to the hallway, needing a breath of fresh air. That's when I saw Julia Mann, 23, leaning against a wall, scrolling through her phone. She looked tired, her usual catty energy subdued. Hey, I said, walking up to her. She looked up, surprised, then offered a small, knowing smile. Hey, Wendy. Still on staff duty? Someone has to be, I replied, a dry edge to my voice. Harmony's speech was inspiring, Julia snorted. Inspiringly fake, maybe. She's been practicing that unwavering support line for months. You know, she used to brag about her apartment, said she never paid rent. Daddy always fixes it, like it was some kind of badge of honor. My jaw tightened. I knew. I knew exactly who fixed it. She really thinks her parents bought it for her? Oh, absolutely, Julia confirmed, rolling her eyes. She thinks they're loaded, and that she's the only reason they'd ever spend money. She's so entitled, it's sickening. Honestly, I'm surprised she even let you come to the gala, given how she usually talks about you. Oh? I prompted, keeping my voice casual. Yeah. Wendy's just doing her own thing. She's fine. She doesn't need us. That kind of stuff. Like you're some charity case they occasionally acknowledge. Julia paused, then looked at me, a mischievous glint in her eyes. You know, for the gala tonight, I could probably rig up a mic in that gift box, just for a little dramatic flair when she opens it. I considered it for a moment. The thought of Harmony's shocked gasp amplified for the entire room was tempting. But no, that wasn't my style. I wanted the truth to be naked, unadorned by theatrics. I wanted the silence, the slow realization, to be the loudest sound in the room. Thanks, Julia, I said, but I think I'll pass on the mic. I want this to be personal. She shrugged. Suit yourself. Just offering. She deserves whatever's coming to her. She does, I agreed. By the way, do you have a spare pen? She rummaged in her bag, pulled out a cheap ballpoint. Here. I took it, then pulled out a blank card from my pocket, the kind that came with a gift. I thought for a moment, then wrote a single, pointed line in neat, clear script. Any idea who's been paying your rent? I didn't sign it. There was no need. The gift itself would be the signature. Just as I was tucking the card back into the velvet box, my phone buzzed. It was Presley Willis, 30 years old. Hey, Wendy, he said, his voice brisk. Just got off the phone with the title company. Everything's finalized. Your name is still on the real deed, the one that matters. The one with the actual equity. Harmony's just got the cosmetic one. Want to flip the keys early? My heart gave a little jolt. The cosmetic deed was the one I'd had drawn up for the reveal, the one with Harmony's name prominently displayed as the owner, but with the small, almost invisible UN initials indicating the true financial backing. The real deed, the one Presley was talking about, was locked away in a safe deposit box, unequivocally in my name. This was it. The final piece of the puzzle. No, Presley, I said, my voice calm, steady. Not yet. Let's stick to the plan. Tonight. Got it, he said. Good luck. You earned this. I hung up, a slow smile spreading across my face. The gala was about to begin. Harmony was about to receive the biggest gift of her life, and it was going to cost her everything. The ballroom glittered under the chandeliers. Guests dressed in their finest mingled with champagne flutes in hand. The string quartet played a classical piece that felt entirely too cheerful for the storm brewing beneath the surface. I moved through the crowd, a phantom in my black uniform, collecting empty glasses, refilling water. Harmony, 26, arrived fashionably late, sweeping in with my parents, Linda, 64, and Felix, 67, on either side. A ripple of applause followed her. She was the toast of the town, the golden girl, bathed in the spotlight she'd been groomed for. I watched from the periphery as she greeted professors, shook hands with family friends, her smile bright and unwavering. My parents beamed, their faces radiating an almost blinding pride. This was their moment, their triumph, built on my quiet sacrifices. The dinner service began. I served plates, cleared dishes, my movements precise and efficient. I could feel Christian Horton, 31, at the bar, his eyes occasionally finding mine. He looked curious, a silent question in his gaze. Julia Mann, 23, was seated at a table near the front, already on her phone, a small, knowing smirk playing on her lips. Then came the toasts. Several professors spoke, praising Harmony's intellect and dedication. Then my father Felix stood, clearing his throat. He spoke briefly, his voice a little shaky, about how proud he was of his daughter. Then he handed the microphone to my mother. Linda, 64, took the mic, her voice ringing out, clear and strong. To Harmony, she began, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Our Harmony. She has always been a beacon of light, a testament to what hard work and perseverance can achieve. She is not just a success, she is the only success our family has ever truly known. She has fulfilled every dream we ever had for her, and more. The words hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. The only success. My hand, holding a tray of empty glasses, didn't tremble. This was it. The final, definitive dismissal. I took a deep breath. My moment. I walked calmly towards the head table, a practiced, polite smile on my face. Excuse me, Mom, I said, my voice sweet, a little louder than necessary, but still soft enough to sound like an innocent interruption. I reached the table, the velvet box clutched in my left hand, hidden from view by my body. Linda turned, startled, her perfect smile faltering. Wendy? What is it, dear? I'm making a toast. I know, Mom, I said, my smile widening. And it's a beautiful toast. But before everyone raises their glasses, I just wanted to contribute a small gift to Harmony, a little something to celebrate her success and all the hard work that went into it. I stepped forward, placing the velvet box directly in front of Harmony, pushing aside a champagne flute. Harmony, caught off guard, looked from me to the box, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. The room had gone quiet, a few murmurs rippling through the tables. All eyes were on us. Wendy, what is this? Harmony asked, her voice a little strained. Just a little something, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper, for her ears alone. Open it. Harmony hesitated for a moment. Then, with a forced smile for the audience, she reached for the box. Her fingers, adorned with the antique bracelet, flipped open the lid. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. The color drained from her face. The card, the one I'd written, fluttered from the box and landed silently on the pristine white tablecloth. It landed face up. Any idea who's been paying your rent? A few guests closest to the table leaned forward, trying to read the card. A low murmur started like the buzzing of a disturbed hive. Felix, 67, who had been sitting quietly, leaned over, his brow furrowed. He saw the deed, then the card. His eyes snapped to mine, a mixture of shock and dawning horror. Linda, 64, dropped her champagne glass. It hit the floor with a dull thud, the liquid spreading like a stain on the carpet. No one seemed to notice. Harmony's breath hitched. She looked at the deed, then at the card, then at me, her face a mask of disbelief. What is this? She choked out, her voice barely audible. I leaned in close, my voice a soft, venomous whisper for her ears, for my parents' ears, for anyone close enough to catch it. You didn't think med school was free, did you, Harmony? Or that luxury apartment? Someone had to pay for it. Someone always pays. The family table erupted. Linda let out a strangled cry. Felix pushed back his chair, a strangled sound in his throat. Harmony's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears of rage and humiliation. From across the room, I saw Julia Mann, 23, discreetly holding up her phone, recording. Christian Horton, 31, stood frozen behind the bar, his eyes wide, watching me. I turned, my back to the chaos, and walked away. Every single head in that ballroom turned, following my retreating figure. I didn't look back. I just kept walking, a slow, satisfied smile spreading across my face. The golden illusion had just shattered. The walk out of that ballroom felt like floating. The murmurs, the gasps, the choked cries from the head table, they were just background noise to the quiet hum of satisfaction in my ears. I didn't run. I didn't even rush. I simply walked, one foot in front of the other, through the stunned crowd, out the main doors, and into the cool night air. The city lights seemed brighter, sharper. My phone started buzzing before I even reached the street. It was a flurry of texts and missed calls, mostly from numbers I didn't recognize. The first few were from distant relatives, confused and asking what had happened. Then came the messages from my parents. Linda, 64, texted first. Wendy, what did you do? Call me now. This is a disaster. Felix, 67, followed quickly. Wendy, please, we need to talk. This is not how we handle things. I ignored them all. I walked until I found a quiet bench in a small park, the kind with patchy grass and a broken swing set. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and opened social media. It was already ablaze. Julia Mann, 23, had been efficient. An anonymous account, Gala Truth Teller, had uploaded a shaky video. It started just as I handed Harmony the box. You could hear my mother's startled cry, Harmony's choked question, and my low, clear whisper. You didn't think med school was free, did you, Harmony? Or that luxury apartment? Someone had to pay for it. Someone always pays. The video had gone viral within minutes. Comments were flooding in, outrage, disbelief, a surprising amount of support. OMG, the sister snapped. She paid for her own sister's apartment. That's next level. The parents' faces, though. My phone rang. It was Christian Horton, 31. I hesitated, then answered. Wendy? Are you okay? His voice was laced with concern, but also a strange undercurrent of awe. I'm fine, I said, my voice steady. Better than fine, actually? I saw it, he said, and I could hear the faint murmur of a crowd in the background, probably still at the gala. I saw everything. That was something else. I mean, wow. Yeah, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. It was. I have to ask, he continued, his voice a little softer. What will it cost you to do something like that? I paused, looking up at the night sky. Everything, maybe, and nothing. It depends on how you look at it. He was quiet for a moment. Well, whatever it costs, it was definitely a mic drop. I'm impressed, seriously. Thanks, Christian, I said, a genuine warmth spreading through me. I appreciate that. We talked for a few more minutes, a strange, quiet conversation in the aftermath of the explosion. He didn't ask for details, didn't judge, he just listened. It was a new feeling, having someone witness my truth without flinching. I hung up, then scrolled through the news feeds. The story was already being picked up by local news outlets. Family drama erupts at medical school graduation gala. Sister reveals secret apartment ownership. My name, Wendy Nelson, was suddenly everywhere. The invisible older sister was now the most talked about Nelson. Then came the call I'd been anticipating. Harmony. Her number flashed on the screen. I let it ring, and ring, and ring. Finally, it went to voicemail. A moment later, a text came through. You bitch, what did you do? My residency. They just called me. They pulled the offer. Integrity issues? This is your fault. I hate you. I hate you so much. I read the text, my smile unwavering. Her residency. Pulled. The carefully constructed future, built on lies and unearned privilege, crumbling. It was exactly what I'd hoped for. The consequences were swift, brutal, and entirely her own making. My phone dinged again. It was a message from my mother, Linda. Not a call, not a frantic plea, a cold, carefully worded text. We always wondered when you'd bite the hand that fed you. I stared at the words. The hand that fed you. The hand that had starved me, dismissed me, used me as a convenient prop for their golden child. The hand that had never offered me $200 for a car repair, but had poured hundreds of thousands into Harmony's illusion. I laughed, a quiet, bitter sound that echoed in the empty park. I was not biting the hand that fed me. I was simply collecting on a very, very old debt. I stood up, feeling a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The garage apartment, my 3 jobs, the constant struggle, it all felt like a distant memory. I was no longer the ghost. I was the one pulling the strings. I walked towards the downtown skyline, towards the luxury condo that was legally mine, the one Harmony thought was hers. I knew I couldn't go in tonight. Not yet, but soon. My phone continued to ding, a constant stream of notifications. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace. I sat alone in the park, the city lights twinkling around me, and let the chaos rage. It was only just beginning. The days that followed the gala were a whirlwind. My phone, once a silent accessory, was now a constant source of pings and notifications. The story had exploded beyond local news, picked up by national human interest segments and online forums. I was no longer invisible. I was a headline. My family hadn't spoken to me directly since Mom's cold text. Harmony, 26, had moved out of the luxury condo within a week, the humiliation too much to bear. She'd found a shared apartment uptown, a stark contrast to the amenities she'd grown accustomed to. Her social media, once a curated masterpiece, was now private, her public image shattered. My parents, Linda, 64, and Felix, 67, were dealing with the fallout, trying to manage the whispers and the pointed questions from their social circle. I heard through the grapevine that they were telling people I'd had a nervous breakdown and that the whole thing was a misunderstanding. I just smiled, let them spin their stories. The truth was out there. Presley Willis, 30, called me a few days after the gala. "You're famous, Wendy." He chuckled. "My old high school friend, the real estate mogul. Got a call from a small business podcast. They want to profile you. Said they heard about your unconventional path to success. I mentioned your name, of course. I agreed to the interview. It was an opportunity to tell my story, my way, without the filter of family narratives. I spoke about the years of hard work, the calculated risks, the quiet building of wealth. I didn't mention Harmony by name or the specific incident, but the subtext was clear. I was the one who had built something from nothing, while others had simply inherited illusions. Christian Horton, 31, became a more frequent presence in my life. He'd text me silly memes, ask about my day, or just offer a quiet observation. He never brought up the gala directly, but there was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared acknowledgement of the raw, exposed truth I'd laid bare. He saw me, truly saw me, not as the strong one, not as the invisible one, but as Wendy. One evening, he asked if I wanted to grab dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet place near my garage apartment. We talked for hours about his failed med school dreams, about his bartending gigs, about his quiet ambition to start a small business. He listened intently when I spoke about my properties, my plans for expansion. There was a cautious romance beginning to bloom, rooted in mutual respect and a shared understanding of what it felt like to be underestimated, to have to fight for every inch. It was slow, tentative, but real. He didn't try to fix me or even understand the depths of my bitterness. He just accepted it, and me as I was. My tone these days was calmer, more satisfied. Not euphoric, not triumphant in a loud, boisterous way. Just a deep, quiet contentment. The gnawing resentment, the constant ache of invisibility, had finally receded. The ledger was balanced. The debt was paid. A few weeks after the gala, I found myself driving past my old garage apartment. The "for rent" sign was gone. Someone new lived there now, another struggling soul trying to make ends meet. I pulled over, parked down the street, and walked towards it. The door, once so familiar, seemed smaller now, almost quaint. It creaked open easily when I pushed it. The garage was empty. The futon was gone, the makeshift shelves cleared out. The small, unassuming painting that had hidden my safe was gone too, taken by the new tenant, perhaps. The wall where the safe had been was just bare drywall. Quiet. So quiet. I stepped inside, the faint smell of old oil still lingering, a ghost of my past. This cramped, forgotten space had been my sanctuary, my secret laboratory, the crucible where my revenge had been forged. It had been a tomb for my resentment and a womb for my ambition. I stood there for a long moment, taking it all in. The silence was profound, a stark contrast to the constant noise of my phone, the endless chatter of the world outside. There was no bitterness left here, no lingering anger, just a quiet sense of finality. I turned, walked out, and gently pulled the door shut behind me, the creak echoing in the stillness. You only sleep fine when the lights are off, the door's locked, and the debts are paid.